Hi, everyone. It's Norman Koshnek here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshnek. Very interesting, some of the byplay going on WhatsApp, our so-called WhatsApp group, with comments with Chris Vernon saying the game is in the balance, and I couldn't help but refer to Gary Balance. If you remember him, he wasn't much chop. He didn't last long. Hope Gary Balance is not listening, but I mean, he's got 2 L's in his name. I don't quite know why. I actually call him Valance for some reason at first, but anyway. Welcome, Chris Vernon and Simon Willis.
Hello.
I appreciate you guys coming. It's good to see a fledglings cricket top, and I basically can barely see England behind you there. I haven't even got one of my books behind me this time. We are expecting more people. Tomorrow, yet again, we're going to have a lot of people. We're actually going to have a very interesting lady from Crick Buzz. Her name is Kritika Naidu. She's absolutely magnificent. She's the most eloquent speaker, and she's really right up there with Harini Rana, actually. She's coming tomorrow, and I've been trying to get her all week, and she's not been available. But she had a small thing, her wedding anniversary today, so I can kind of accept that she wouldn't be here when that's happening. But she's a lovely lady, and I've had lots to do with her over the years, so I'm very happy to have her there. We heard Deep Burrow. He said England are absolutely dominated. Well, they are. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Ashwin, really, that century was quite magnificent, wasn't it, really? Considering the conditions, he played particularly well, and he outstripped Virat Kohli as well. I mean, Kohli was looking pretty solid, but, I mean, Ashwin took over. But it's all about mental attitude, isn't it, at this stage? The ascendancy is there, the freedom of thought. Look at the way Siraj hit a 6 towards the end there. We didn't see Leach do that when he came in as night watchman, did we? In fact, he was there for 1 ball. Do you think, in all honesty, do you think the night watchman concept, I don't want to say that has died, but do you really think it was, I understand you're trying to protect Root, considering all, but do you think it really served any purpose? I mean, he only lasted 1 ball against. You would almost predict that would happen because Leach is, I'm afraid, is a bunny against this at the bowling, and you're better off having Root in there because Root's such a capable player. Why would you hide him? He's probably the person to stop gap at the end of the day. I think. I'm not a big fan of not watching. What do you guys?
Yeah, I would imagine they gave the option to Joe at the end of the day. Do you want a night watchman or don't you? There are some players that just want to get in there, like you say, and face the music as soon as possible. Where there are others that would, like to come back the following day and have a fresh look at it. But yeah, it's always going to be challenging, isn't it? There's been lots of talk about the pitch throughout this Test match. From pundits, from spectators, and Ashwin just showed that you can score runs on it. Yes, it is turning, but it's more a mindset approach to do you have a really clear game plan on how you're going to execute? And fair play to him. Yes, slightly different. You're ahead in the game, so you've got that little bit more freedom. But he did it really, really well, and just shows you that runs can be scored on this pitch.
Absolutely. Can I just add another point? Okay, back to that night watchman. So Leach went in as the night watchman, lasted 1 ball, but Root still went in. Is the principles of a night watchman, that defeats the purpose of having a night watchman if you're still sending Root and if you're trying to protect him. If you really in that mindset, you could have thrown another person in there to stave off those few balls. So there's a crazy logic to that Root still went. If there was an adamancy for him not to bat tonight because of that condition, wouldn't you throw? I'm just throwing out, anyone you could throw another like Moeen Ali or something like that. I don't know. He's probably not a bunny, but if you really wanted to protect Root, excuse me, you needed to not do that.
It's easy to criticise when it goes wrong, though, isn't it? Let's face it. It's pretty tough in those conditions, spinning and bouncing. But if Leach sees the day out, which he probably does, 8 times out of 10, everyone's saying good decision, Joe, well done, come back tomorrow. So it's easy to criticise when things go wrong. Anyone can do that. But no, Ashwin was very good. We talked in the first test about those little 50, those little 5-10 percenters, and I watched the first session, and England started very well. And then when Ashwin got dropped at slip off Broad, Stokes dropped him, which is obviously fairly close, but a chance that he would back himself to catch. If he catches that, then obviously England might be chasing less. But how it's panned out, he was brilliant, and fair play to India. They rightly deserve to win this match.
Yeah, just quickly, Simon, on the aspect, and you're a keeper. In fact, I was a keeper, surprisingly enough. I'm fat enough to be a Rod Marsh type. But I don't really understand why folks were standing up over the stumps. I know you want to keep the guy in the crease, perhaps, but that actually probably put Stokes off when he dropped that catch, in my opinion. I think it's extremely hard to catch at first slip when your keeper's up and the bowler's bowling at Broad's pace. It really does put you off at a first slip. It makes it a mind game on you that it plays a game seeing a keeper over the stumps. I think it's one of the worst. I don't think they gained anything from doing that, and I don't understand why they persisted doing that for as long as they did. What's your thoughts?
I think they thought the wicket was going down a little bit, so to keep the batter in his crease with the keeper up, might catch the batsman out LBW, or one keeping low through the gate, as it were. So I think it was more that than anything else. Broad was bowling very straight. He was trying to bowl a few cutters into the pitch. So it's just a strategy they tried. Whether it was successful or not, that's down to people to judge. But he's a good.
I'm talking more about a general rule. I don't mean specifically what happened today. Would you coach a keeper to go over the stumps like that, or would you not?
Yeah, I would. Particularly in one-day cricket. Jack Russell did it for years for Gloucestershire, standing up to Ian Harvey. He bowled 90 miles an hour on occasions, and Jack brought a new dimension to that Gloucestershire side. It certainly worked for them. But
Jack Russell's an exception, though, isn't he? He was a monumentally good keeper.
I'd put Folks into that bracket.
Oh, I don't deny that. But I don't know whether it necessarily worked today.
There's no doubt that Kohli and Ashwin would have probably been batting out their crease a considerable amount if when Broad came on, just to negate the LBW and to get outside the line. So by folks standing up, if they're then back in their crease, they're forcing the batsman to do something different. So I've played in games where I've played with many good keepers, and Simon will know those guys in Kent as well. And if the keeper's good enough, and if Stuart Broad is happy with it, then I think it's a good thing. One nick. How many nicks have there been in this Test match? I think Rishabh Pant took one, and then that one today. It's not a nick caught for a slip wicket. It's a bowl straight LBW and bowled wicket. So once again, I think it's one of those things where just because there was a drop catch doesn't mean it wasn't a good decision. It's just on that day it didn't work. It didn't work out for England. But no, I mean,
and who knows where Stokes' mind might have been at that stage. The game's drifting along. He could easily be thinking about other things, and mistakes happen. So I wouldn't put that down solely to the keeper being up at the stumps.
But you did say that in terms of one-day cricket, and I get that, but Test cricket, I don't get that. I'm sorry, probably am I old-fashioned? Whenever I kept, that would be rather forlorn, me doing that, I thought. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's game situation, whether it's Test cricket, one-day cricket, 2020 cricket, it's what the game situation dictates, and that's pitch conditions, that's bowlers. Broad might be a little bit down on pace as well. So the keeper's thinking nicks aren't going to carry, so I might as well go up and try and get a nick if it does carry. So
you also got to remember, Norman, is that you could argue that the plan worked. If folks had stood back, Ashwin might have been a foot out of his ground, and that might have been a half volley that nails the foot. The fact that they've drawn a shot and he's nicked it, just because Stokes hasn't taken the catch, you could actually say that it's worked. Their plan has actually done the job. It's just because we didn't didn't finish it off doesn't mean that it wasn't an effective way. I mean, you could look at it like that. So we'll agree to disagree here. It's just not my thing. I
think there's actually a comment in there from someone, I can't see it now, Marcus Lawrence, who mentions Jack Russell standing up to Gladstone Small and got a leg side stumping. I think that was in a Test match. I'm not sure that was a one-day international. Hang
on. Gladstone Small. Sorry, is that a top order batsman we're talking about there? Okay.
No. Gladstone Small was bowling. So I think part of that Ashes winning the team.
Sorry. All right. Fair enough. I mean, we can talk about one-offs, sure, but it's just not my way. I'm sorry. Is Marcus Lawrence the mate of yours, Chris or Simon?
I do know Marcus. Yeah, Munchie as we call him. Yeah, he's I do know him. So yeah, he's a good guy. So hence why he's giving me rubs about Liverpool losing. But he's a Chelsea fan, so he can't talk too much.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure what Chelsea's got to do with cricket now. All right. So the reality is that England are in a spot of bother at 3 for 50 odd, 53, I think it is. It's look. I'm not trying to bag England because, quite frankly, India did play the perfect match in terms of the conditions. Jack Leach didn't bowl badly when he bowled, but he had a batters. I'm actually quietly impressed with Jack Leach. I think he's handled things really, really well. Both he and Moeen Ali got 4 wickets each, and they probably deserve fifers. Unfortunately, Ollie Stone got the last wicket. They probably deserved a fifer, and they didn't get it, which is just unfortunate. But the way that the match went, at certain stages, India were not going that well in their batting performance. They could easily have been less. But then Kohli and obviously Ashwin turned it around quite considerably. But yeah, I mean, in the end, 470 or 80 is ridiculous for anyone, and on this weekend in particular. I do admire the way that what appeared to be Burns, Sibley's and Lawrence's approach. They were quite positive. And I mean, Burns was actually looking very impressive, wasn't he? He was playing some particularly good shots, but he got a good ball yet again. And yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I'm watching Kohli's face when wickets fall. There's a certain smugness that I'm actually not that impressed with. I know Virat Kohli's a very confident player, but there's an element of extra smugness. Now, I don't know where that's. I don't think that's necessarily good. I know he's a confident captain, but an element of smugness about some of the things he's doing, which is not that commendable, to be really honest. But maybe I'm overjudging that. But I mean, the way I saw the pep talk between the players and Kohli before they went on the field just then, and I saw Pujara laughing. I mean, they're extremely confident. I get that, but both they need to be wary because England aren't out of the series by any stretch of the imagination, are they? Especially with the day-night match coming in the third test. England can come back firing, especially if Anderson and Broad bowl. I have to be honest with you. India need to be a tinsing to be a bit careful because they've absolutely steamrolled England so far in this match, but it could turn equally as quickly the other way around, couldn't it? I mean, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that it's very easy to jump on the bandwagon in England here, and I don't think that they'll be. I think that they'll sit down and talk about the game, but I don't think they'll be massively worried. You know, they've come to India with the expectation to be hammered probably 3 out of 4 games at least. You know, you got to remember this time last week they completely and utterly dominated India. They won it comfortably, and they've got a draw on that. You know, I don't think that they'll be massively worried. This is as expected. If you'd said to Chris Smallwood, Silverwood, and Joe Root after 2 tests it would be 1-1, and both sides would have won a game easily, they would have said, thanks very much, let's go to Ahmedabad. So, you know, I don't think they'll be too worried. I think the more I think about it, I don't see Anderson and Broad playing together in that test match at Ahmedabad. I don't think it's going to swing. I don't think it's going to be a day-night test like it is in Adelaide or in England.
It is a pink ball. It is a pink ball.
Yeah. It will still do a little bit, and you'll have a little bit of a dew factor as well. You know, from my experiences of floodlit cricket, test cricket in the subcontinent. So scores are always lower, there's no doubt. But I agree, Broad didn't quite look himself this test match.
No, he didn't.
No, I don't think that Broad can add what they want to play 2 spinners, and India you have to play 2 spinners. And I don't think that whatever Broad can offer, they'd have to drop Archer or Stone, and I just don't see it happening. Or they drop Crawley will probably come in for Lawrence unless Lawrence gets 100 here. So if you're actually looking at the balance of the side, I don't see where Archer or Stone have to play for the extra bounce, and they're seam bowlers anyway, and they can reverse swing it. So I really don't see them playing together. I think Anderson will come back in for Broad, and then they'll take a call on Stone depending on Archer's fitness, I guess.
Do you reckon Moeen Ali stays in the side or does Best come back?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's quite funny. I'm just noticing the commentary. There's actually ticket sales going on between some of the people, like Deep, Manu, they're actually selling tickets to each other. This is a rather innovative thing on commentary.
Have to have a corkage fee, Norman. Have to charge a certain fine.
Yeah, I'm going to need a percentage of that for sure, like a few rupees or something. I'm not sure how much. But yeah, it's quite funny how that's transpired. Look, let's go back to Ashram for a minute. I never really considered him in the class, and he's not in the class of Garfield Sabres. That's never going to be compared to, but statistically, he's now gone to the second, only below both of them in terms of 5 for centuries. That's quite an achievement, isn't it? Really, I'm quite quietly impressed with it. I think that's rather. And they haven't all been necessarily in India, I don't think either, because the 4 were against the West Indies. I saw
all his hundreds are in India, so they're all out at home. I mean, he's a master in his conditions, isn't he? And he's a very solid player away from home. But yeah, all of his hundreds have been in India. So
this is a huge feat against England. Yeah. To get 100 and a 5 for the last person to do it was Sir Garfield Sobers. Huge. It's huge. And in those conditions as well, from a batting perspective, he deserves all the accolades he gets tonight. And, there are people that are on his back occasionally. But if you look at his record, he's a match winner and he's a tough cookie.
And they were translating what he was saying. I think it was in Hindi to, I think, Siraj. And it was great advice. He was saying, I've got you on strike, make me proud. It was quite incredible. That was quite a positive spin on what he actually said. Look, the other thing with Ashwin, which I find intriguing, is that he's able to have his own blog every night during the series, and he's off chatting to Gavaskar and whoever else. It's quite incredible the way he works overload with both being a player and also virtually what we're doing here. We know how tiring it is for you, Chris, and me and Simon when we have to do this morning, noon, and night. He's doing it as well. It's quite remarkable. All right. So, how long are they going to last tomorrow?
It's a tough one. I was having a bit of banter with a friend on Facebook earlier who always moans about Indian pitches. Chris knows Mr. Kevin Masters. And he
won't be coming on the show, Norman, that's for sure.
No, exactly. I thought, this was before this innings started. I said England all out 250. But I would say now, looking at the start that they've had, that's probably going to be a few less. So I'm not expecting them to bat the day out.
No, you wouldn't think so. But look, I would really like Root to have a good old dig and bat, not unlike the way Kohli and Ashwin batted today, with a fair degree of determination. And Root's capable of that. He could easily get, an 80 or 100, and despite losing, have a very admirable test, because he actually deserves that. The way he's played throughout Sri Lanka and here has been Bradman-esque, and he got 40 on the last things, and then the first things he didn't do very well. But quite frankly, I'd love to see him get a decent score, to give it to India a little bit and actually maintain the way he's going, because he deserves it. He, to me, is the one player that could actually ink out an 80 to 100, despite people falling around him now. I'd like to see that. Even the likes of Pope and, even Folks, there's a bit of grit in those guys. I don't think that's going to be that easy. I'm not.
I'd like to see England coming out of this second innings learning something from the whole experience. If they can take some positives out of developing their game plans or gaining confidence against Ashwin and co. To take into the last 3 test matches, then for me that's been a really worthwhile process. So for me, it's a massive opportunity for those guys you've just named to put a score on the board.
So I was talking earlier today, Simon, with Debashis and Chris about players that go to, say, the county circuit in England, or in the days of Sheffield Shield in Australia, why there aren't individuals in the Ranji Trophy. Now, I'm not sure of the timing, etc., and the allowability of that, but I think to me that would be an excellent addition, because if they play 4 or 5 day matches for Ranji Trophy, they're going to get exposure, and they may, in fact, be able to handle these games a lot better, rather than having to learn on the fly. I don't know.
There's an element of the BCCI allowing that to happen as well, because, again, they might see it as giving people advantage in their conditions. It certainly happened in Sri Lanka, and Ben Folks came out and played club cricket in Sri Lanka for one winter. So Ben had a number of opportunities, either playing club cricket, on development tours, England Lions tours in the subcontinent. So by the time that he actually played in Sri Lanka and got that Test 100, he'd been out there 4 or 5 times. So for me, the more exposure you can get of overseas conditions at a younger age, the better. Even Zach Crawley at 15, I took out to Sri Lanka to learn how to play on turning pitches. So it's not alien to them.
Well, that's really a good lead into fledgling cricket to me. That is something that in all honesty, is a very good thing. I mean, I was involved with the Moreton Cricket Club in Queensland. We went 16 years in a row to play in Queensland, and we had on those tours Ben Cutting, Ben Dunk, Chris Lynn. I mean, they ended up being great. Berwick Barnes is a rugby player, but they'd all come on, and they actually had the exposure to Sri Lanka. So that's a very good example again where we've got that. A partner's here to gloat, I think.
Yeah, I think the key with the India overseas is that if the option was available, there's no doubt that England or Australians would be playing in that tournament. So it's easy to sit and say, but it's obviously India. The India Cricket Board have said we're not having it, and fair play. I don't see that being a bad thing at all. Like why would you want to do it? Like they've got homegrown. Say Joe Root goes over as an overseas to play for Chennai State. I don't know what the states are. Raipur, wherever it is, and a young Pretty Shaw misses out. He's a young 18-year-old batter, and they've got an overseas comes in. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So it's clearly an Indian decision, and it's probably a good one. I don't think it's a bad one at all.
But it's only going to make that young Pretty Shaw try harder to get in. So I don't know. I can't see it being someone missing out. That's a bit, a bit too.
Don't underestimate the learning you get from an overseas player. So at Kent, where Raul Dravid came over, and that was unbelievable for our young players. Your Rob Keys, your Matt Walkers at the time, just learnt so much from him. And he would put down his experience in England as his finishing school. That helped him to make the career that he eventually had. And, it took a while for the Aussies to let people in. I think both of them had a little go, and Graham Hick, but it wasn't frequent. But nowadays, you just look at the Big Bash recently, there's a lot of opportunities for our county players. So, I think that's going to become the norm going forward. It's not a pun, but, I think you're going to see more and more players travelling overseas to develop their games.
Apana. Your volume again. Oh, my God.
Nothing.
What's going on? There must be something here. Have you got your headphones?
No.
No, can't hear you.
What's Apana? There must be something you can. She's gone.
She's gone. She'll come back.
She'll come back. Okay. Look, she was talking to me off air. She's been very impressed. She obviously being a bit in Indian background, she's particularly impressed. But I think it's more, and I keep on making this point. The crowds again had a major impact. I mean, I only just heard Ashwin talking about that. That really lifted him, and Siraj when he batted, that lifted him as well. How significant was that? Very significant.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? Those home advantage in any sport, like it's. I said it's been a massive talking point in this country with the football at the moment. There's rugby on with the Six Nations. No crowds is huge. These all teams, no matter what sport, rely on their home advantage as a 12th man, don't they? It's a famous thing to say. It's the 12th man, so that has to have an effect. And I think ultimately, I think England will still take a lot of positive out of even this game. That India are sitting here saying how well they've played, and they have played brilliantly well. But this is what they were expected to do. So the fact that they're not sitting here going England were rubbish, we just wiped the floor with them, and they're saying we've played really well to beat an England side has to be some credit to Joe Root and his side. So I'm just looking forward to that third test match. I think
there's a lot of comments about Apana doing a sound check before she gets on. I don't know what's going on. It's actually frustrating me because there's no reason why it shouldn't be working. She probably needs to get headsets on. Maybe it's the phone that she's got. Anyway, that's an aside. The reality is that India did wobble in their second innings. They did have a severe wobble, didn't they, really? I mean, Kohli and Ashwin got their act together, and that improved their situation quite dramatically. But up until then, there was a fair degree of wobble. I mean, their batting order did struggle quite. They were looking very much like the English batting order, to be really honest with you. And it took Kohli's application to Bremer, and he changed his batting. Did you see that as well? Moving from a well outside off stump to more of a leg stump for Leach, which was intriguing. Sort of, yeah. Yeah,
and I'm amazed that England haven't done that to the left arm spinner. That's pretty much standard. In the environments that I've had. Because the left arm spinner or leg spinner wants you to play to the leg side, so the drift into your pads. If you're standing on off stump or thereabouts, you're more likely to play across the line of the ball. Whereas Kohli, he was playing beside the ball and playing the ball after it turned. So, I thought that was, good to see from his point of view, but disappointing to see that England haven't gone along similar lines.
But it is intriguing. It's a great example of how a batsman learns mid-game.
Well, there's no doubt that what makes the best players different from the all right players is that the best players will always rise to the top and always adapt accordingly, and they learn quickly. That's why Williamson, Kohli, Root, Smith are all so different, because they can adapt in a game, whereas it takes some guys a winter or 6 months, and sometimes by the time they've adapted, they've lost their place in the test side and they don't get it back. So it's at that level you have to be able to adjust quickly, and that's why they're so good. That's why they play the longest. That's why they score so many runs. I
was actually very impressed with Akshar Patel's bowling too. I thought that he was awfully difficult to play, and he was very hard to pick. And I mean, I do get he's got some talent there. He remarkably, it was difficult to get him away, and he bowled much faster than other spinners. And it's again a learning curve for some of the bowlers. Even though Jack Leach and Moeen Ali bowled well, I think their change of pace is not as effective, and that's what they've got to learn, is to speed up the delivery a bit more to be more effective. Not that they didn't do well; they did brilliantly, but I think that's one of the keys, is to actually, there's an extra bit of speed to that ball when it actually is gripping and turning. What's your thoughts?
So on this particular pitch, the extra pace was definitely effective, but it's also landing the ball in an area consistently to build pressure, and that's what I was really impressed with Akshar. He kept bowling to hit the stumps, which is obviously a subcontinent tactic, and he did it very well. But I think you just got to, again, it'll be interesting to see if he can come to England and bowl at that pace. I think slightly different. You have to bowl it a little bit slower in England to grip the surface.
No, I think you have to. And I said yesterday, and I like Akshar. I've always put him in my fantasy side in the IPL when he's played. Because he's that good all-round cricketer. I do think you don't want to jump on him too quickly. I think if Nadeem had played in this Test match, he probably would have taken a lot of wickets too. It's certainly a wicket that I think for him it's been a very nice wicket to make his debut on, and it's certainly helped his bowling. So I think that if he can back it up in the third and fourth tests and still be as effective, then I think it's very difficult to make too many judgments based on one test on this ground, if that makes sense. But he looks a very exciting prospect. He's going to be another one that's probably not going to have much of a test career either, because as soon as Ravi Jadeja's fit in India, he's going to play. So, they're probably not going to play two spinners away from home in England anyway. So in terms of spinners down the line, he's probably only ever going to play in India when someone's not fit. So it's just a shame, someone like that with all that talent, that his career is going to be probably white ball and first class cricket only.
Okay, another point that you almost started to talk about, obviously, two Chennai pitches, one that was substandard. The first one was okay. Again, my thoughts on having a test match wicket used that quickly, days after each other. In Ahmedabad, we're looking at a different kettle of fish. We're going to have more pace, I'm sure, on that pitch, just by the nature of it being a different venue. I think it's not going to be as much of a turner as Chennai. Again, Ahmedabad is going to have two test matches, one after each other there. I just don't know about the preparation of those wickets yet again, whether in fact, they're going to have a situation where the fourth test is going to be a disaster or not. Does that make sense?
It just depends on the result of the third test, doesn't it? I guarantee if India win that third test, it'll be flat as a pancake, no matter how much you say. So there won't be any doubt about that. But no, India took. I think that India took a risk, and it's paid off. They've wanted the result wicket, and they've got it. And fair play to them. They've delivered, and they've backed up the what they wanted.
So you say it's a substandard pitch, but how many runs in total have India got in this Test match?
600.
More than that, haven't
they? Yeah, more than that.
Yeah, so if it's substandard, normally all sides would be out for 250 or less.
Correct.
So I'd say it's a challenging pitch, there's no doubt about it. But one side has executed better than the other, which happens in any conditions. And England did that in the first Test match, you could say.
So just quickly, if you were to play 4 tests in England, would you play Lords twice and then the Oval twice, for example? Would you do that ever?
Well, they did it this summer, didn't they, with the
Yeah.
West Indies, and they played 2 at Old Trafford and 2 at Hampshire because of the bio bubbles, and they were very good cricket wickets. So
Okay. All right.
I think that the weather is a massive thing as well. In England, you would say that weather and watering and rain and overhead conditions are much more. It's easier to produce a pitch that doesn't fall apart, and that's obvious because look at how pitches are in the subcontinent anyway. But it was done, and as I said, I think it can be done. I think it depends on the brief, doesn't it? And I think that as rightly so. In the BCCI, I've told the guy at Chennai what they want in the second test for the wicket to do, and so they can level the series, and they've done that brilliantly.
Aparna.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yay.
hallelujah.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, felt like India won already.
I actually thought you had laryngitis or something. That's what you may have had.
They need to win before that rain for tomorrow afternoon. It's going to wash out.
Very funny.
Aparna, I want you to gloat and gloat big. Let's have it.
Absolutely, man. Today was another great day for Team India. They are still in control. And might as well win this test match, finally.
What do you think
about
about
you,
that?
Ashton?
Chris? Are you okay, Chris?
I'm fine. It's 1-1 in the Test series. That's all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Actually,
true.
Chris is very white, isn't he? He's very
That's why I
white.
don't think that far. Otherwise, we feel bad.
It's only 1-1. It's a long way to go.
Oh,
I'm just
God.
pulling your leg. That's fun.
Oh,
we've lost
Tom,
Chris.
he's had enough.
We've
You've
lost Chris.
upset
We've
him.
lost him.
You've upset him.
We've lost him. He couldn't handle it. Clearly, he's
a bad shooter.
Chris,
Yeah,
everyone
sorry,
out there,
boy.
all viewers, Chris has just fallen over. I think Chris is he's what's the word? He's decombobulated or something. What's the term?
He's having a
He's
bad
not-
time with his football team as well. He's having a bad time, poor lad.
Oh, Chris, are you there? I don't think you're there, Chris. What happened? Did you
he's
fall
not
over?
there. I'm in control now, so thank you, Norman. First,
I'm having difficulty getting Chris back
hello
on.
to everyone, our wonderful people, amazing lineup we got here. Oh no, he's back.
I'm back. Typical Willis piping up about dodgy football teams. Jesus.
Losing my speech.
So, I mean, you're meant to be in that chateau of yours. Where's that bottle of champagne? Did you guzzle that during the day?
Oh, that was consumed within half an hour of the first test finishing. So I've got plenty lined up for the 5 test matches in England this summer. So.
Oh, right. Very droll. Okay, now, Chris, what happened? I think you spent your worst Valentine Day tomorrow. Please, what's the word? Please smile. So your Valentine, I've seen your posts on, I think it was Instagram or Twitter or something. You looked like you had quite a good day in the snow there.
It was lovely. Yeah, I know. I'm always smiling. I don't think I'm upset at all. I think England have been very good in the series, and I'm proud of the lads. I don't think anyone. I'm a very optimistic England fan at the best of times. Always. I'll always back my side, but I don't think anyone realistically could have said that England would be 1-1 after 2 tests. And let's face it, I don't think they've been massively outplayed in the series. I think that it's 2 very one-sided test matches, and they've come 1 each. So no, it's just a great series, and it's good for cricket.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. This has been actually, I'm very impressed because it's just intrigued us even more how they'll actually go in the 3rd and 4th test. There's a lot more emphasis on those test matches than we probably would have expected there to be. How was your Valentine's Day, Aparna? Did Monty take you out for a virtual dinner or?
Well, after he seemed more interested in you, how can you even ask me that question?
All right, now.
Valentine's Day has been going on since yesterday for all the Indian fans out there, I must admit. Wonderful gift from Team India. And today was another great day. India looked solid and still in complete control after getting a solid lead of 195 runs in the second innings. Considering today was a day where it seemed actually difficult to score on a pitch that started turning and bouncing right from the word go. So, and there's been a lot of talks about that. Have you seen the Twitter? A lot of talks about how the pitch is so not even shouldn't be for a test match, blah blah blah. It's quite actually shocking. I saw the tweet, I was pretty shocked. And because England is not performing in I mean, you know, at that time, right now, sorry Chris, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the pitch. I mean, Rohit Sharma made runs on the same pitch. That's been a really, really hot topic. So what's your views on that, Simon?
I think I've added about the pitch. I think people are jumping on the bandwagon quite a lot, and it's all about execution. And you know, India took first advantage of the pitch, which England did in the first Test match, and they haven't looked back. And that's Test cricket. You know, you've got to make the most of your opportunities. And I think, you know, England need to come out of this Test match with a bit of pride tomorrow and some good learnings going into the third and fourth Test match.
Yeah. Now, Adam Hollioake was now saying that Norman still barracked. Let's say what 6-0. I know I'm not going to get my predictions, of course, but I'm still concerned for these two teams to have a draw after the 4 matches, because that's still possible, isn't it? For example, 2-2 is quite a likely scoreline. It's going to be quite an effort for either team to be 3-1 up.
Has there been much cricket played at the new stadium, that first class cricket, or like does anyone know what the pitch is like? Because if it's a brand new wicket, and I mean we're literally clutching at straws to have any idea what the pitch will be like. You know, it could be, you know, you said it might be a fast bouncy, a bit more grass on it, which would play into England's hands, I think, especially with a pink ball. But it might be a slow turner like it is here. Like if it's the first proper Test match played on it, you know, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I bet neither side name the side the night before the Test again. I think they'll both be doing it at the toss. I think they'll be wanting to keep their cards quite close to their chest.
I think we've got another Indian. We've got Harini Rana's joined us. She's not visible at the moment, but she's on. So look, the reality is that it's not going to be a Chennai pitch. They're not going to build a 120,000 seat stadium, which is going to be used for multi-purpose. That is one day in T20 cricket as well as Tests. They're not going to create a Chennai type pitch. It's bound to be what it will be very much like it'll have more pace and bounce to it, or at least have that, you know, that track that would be suitable for a pink ball. I think that you'll find that ground is going to become the premier ground, not only in India, but in the world because of its capacity.
I don't know about that. It might be a good one-day game, but the groundsman will do what he's told. You know, whatever the groundsman's told to do by the BCCI and the Indian staff, that's what he'll produce. I don't think that he's going to turn around and say, "Nah, I want to produce my fast bouncy batting wicket." When the BCCI said, "Now we want a result wicket," and you know, it's obviously going to be a great stadium. And white ball cricket in India, the pitches are always flat, as it should be. I think 2020 cricket, you want a flat wicket. One-day cricket, you want in between, and then Test cricket, you want in between. You know, good contests of bat and ball. But I don't think we can make any. I don't think you can make any assumptions that the groundsman will produce the wicket he wants. He'll produce the wicket he's just told.
No, but it's very hard to have a brand new surface stadium all of a sudden be a turning wicket. That's actually not possible.
You can just keep it dry, can't you? You just don't water it, or you cut it more, or I'm not a groundsman, but it's you can do it over here. You know, if you
very unlikely.
See, I'm not as
Can I
optimistic.
just ask the group about some of the umpiring in this Test match? You know, we've had a few issues along the way, and I was intrigued about the Root Lbw Appeal tonight, and you know,
absolute shocker.
Yeah, but that was technology, wasn't it, rather than the umpire?
Well, it was a combination. The umpire gave it not out to start with, and it was canning it into off stump, you have to admit. And on review, admittedly, and I don't even think the ball was to one side of the stump. It was actually flush. So I was amazed at that decision. And on top of that, Kohli was quite animated about it, and I don't blame him at all.
I did. The only thing I said to one of my friends who were talking about it is that I don't think Virat Kohli can be too disappointed or animated about umpiring decisions in this Test match. I think there's probably been 4 or 5 questionable decisions with DRS, and India have probably come out favourable on 4 of them. You know, with the stumping of Sharma in the first innings, the Rahane caught that pad, the LBW with Sharma, where he clearly didn't play a shot, and even the Indian commentators said that it was crazy. So,
the amount of times I remember way back, Monty Panesar was terrible. He was appealing all the time. Oh, he's online. I didn't see him. How are you, Monty?
Yeah, good, thank you. I thought England were in a dominant position, and they could have easily got both Virat Kohli and Ashwin out earlier. It was a shame. Why didn't they bring on Stuart Broad at that time? That's Simon. I would love to ask you that question as a coach. There was when you're in a dominant position, how do you hold on to that? And do you think Stuart Broad, wasn't utilised very well in the second innings?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we touched on it a little bit earlier. Maybe the captain feels that Stuart's not at his best this Test match. There might be information that we don't know about, because it was a little bit weird that he didn't get thrown the ball at that stage. So only those in the know will know, I suppose. Yeah.
But Monty, thanks for joining us, by the way, and I appreciate that greatly. Just your feelings of England's today's play. What's your feelings in general about today's play?
I feel that England were in a position to actually bowl India out, and when the Indian batsmen got used to the threat of the spinners, the likes of Jack Leach and Moeen Ali, I didn't see Jack Leach go over the wicket to Virat Kohli or even Ashwin. Not once he bowled over the wicket, throughout that 100. And same thing with, Moeen Ali. Why didn't he come on a little bit earlier? And also technically from his action, he just doesn't look as strong at the crease like like we've seen him before. And, that's something that I think as the longer his spell goes, it's a bit more evident, with he likes to bowl it slightly slower. He doesn't want to bowl it quicker. Doesn't want to sort of, bowl it into the pitch, change the trajectory. So from that point of view, I think it all was very predictable, very sort of same kind of, type of bowling. And then when you look at Ashwin and Akshar Patel, you can see how they changed their seam position to change the degrees of turn, off the pitch. And therefore it creates doubt in the batsman's mind.
Monty, again, you absolutely amazed me. That's so on point. And I don't know why the English panel of not selectors but bowling coaches are not getting you involved, because I'm not knocking the people that are there, but some of the things to me from someone like you, it's almost bleedingly obvious if you've been coached correctly. Those guys took 4 wickets each. I'm not denying that they've got good wicket tallies, but they could have went for the kill much earlier, like you've described, against the likes of Kohli and Ashwin. And that predictability was there. They're not using the crease, not bowling over the wicket. They're not bowling around the wicket when appropriate. I think there's some amazing points there. We need to get this recorded and send a tape through to the ECB. Simon, can you handle that for us?
Not employed there anymore, so
I've got Jeetan Patel there, and I don't know him personally, but I'm sure Monty and Simon have come across him on the circuit, and I'm sure that from what everyone's been saying, that he's doing some good work, especially with Jack Leach. So in terms of pedigree as well, he's a pretty good guy to have on side, I think. So you must be.
I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking him at all. I'm just saying to you, a breath of fresh air and outside advice can only benefit. It's not a negative. It's not taken away from the person. I didn't mean it negatively.
No, I think all international sides, should access, knowledge from past players, and I think England did it in the last Test series. They brought Jack Callis in as a consultant, and sometimes it is just that different perspective out of the bubble, as it were, and just one little thing, and it might be exactly the same things as the coaches are telling them, just coming from a different individual with a different voice. And over the wicket is definitely something I've been surprised at. Someone like Ashley Giles did it very effectively just to control the scoreboard, and that's one of England's big thing, is if you're not taking wickets, then control the run rate. And I was surprised that they didn't do that, like Monty says.
Yeah, that surprised me as well, and I wonder what was going through Joe Root's mind, especially on that first day. I think the game was kind of won between lunch and tea on day one. When Rohit Sharma played that unbelievable innings, and when Joe Root came onto bowl, you can see the frustration and the anger. He's thinking, this wicket is turning and bouncing, and He was enjoying, just changing the trajectory, lowering his arm, different paces, and he's probably scratching his head and thinking, why aren't the likes of Jack Leach and Moeen Ali doing this? Why do they keep bowling their stock delivery? Why aren't they being proactive, thinking on their feet? Where, how do we get a wicket on a turning pitch? It's the non-turning delivery. It's making that ball, turn less. And these are the things I didn't see them do. So I think Jeetan Patel is coaching Jack Leach and Moeen Ali like they're playing county cricket at the moment, where he's thinking, you got to bowl your heavy ball. How long can you keep bowling your heavy ball? Because his coaching philosophy is all about bowling a good heavy ball. But I think these Indian batsmen get used to that. It's not like in England where you bowl a heavy ball and if it hits the seam, it spins quite sharply and there's pace on the wicket. Here, once a ball gets soft, it just dies out, and then you've got to be clever in the way you just change field settings, go over the wicket, round the wicket. And Joe Root could have just said, right, Jack, all I want you to do for the next half an hour, I'll bowl over the wicket, into the rough, and that's it. And if they keep kicking the ball, let them keep doing that. I want to frustrate them. I want to frustrate Virat Kohli, and that's all I want to do. And same with Ashwin. Not once he came over the wicket to change the angle. And what about Ben Stokes? Why didn't they utilize him? Maybe go over the wicket, just bowl bouncers. No one likes, doesn't matter how slow or the turning the pitches, no one likes to get hit by a cricket ball. And I just think, they got carried away, or they just thought because the wicket's turning and bouncing, we'll end up just getting, there'll be a name on it, but it just didn't happen like that.
Oh, it's bang on.
I'd be intrigued to know after this test match and the England management selectors reflect on it, whether, the changes that they've made to the team are the right ones. It's all good in hindsight, but maybe if they had their time again, would they have done anything differently? Because, I think this bowling attack has definitely looked weaker than the first test as a group.
And
I think the most frustrating thing is just that Moeen Ali clearly is really undercooked in terms of cricket. Like, he's bowling full tosses, and he's a wicket taking bowler. I think if Leach and Moeen are bowling well, I think they complement each other quite well, because Leach is naturally slightly more defensive, and that means Moeen can be that more aggressive. And in the same way that Monty and Graham Swan complemented each other, you've got a left arm spinner, right arm offie, and you can attack and defend in different spells. Or I think that's the really disappointing thing, is how expensive. I think Jack Leach has bowled very well in this test. I think that the run rate of Moeen would be a disappointment for them, because he's taken 8 wickets in the test. So then it's not the wickets. Between them, they've taken 15 wickets. The spinners have taken 17 wickets in the test between them, possibly.
I know, but look, that's all well and good, Chris. But I do think what Monty's saying is that they had the opportunity to go even better. And
I agree. I think the key thing is, what I'm saying is that the run rate, and same with Nadeem in the first test for India and Sundar, I think that you have to, if you're going at 4 and over in India, you're knackered. You've got to be bowling. You've got to be going at 1, 2 and over to be effective, I think.
Yeah. Aparna, you're still there? You've been drowned out by these very excitable men here. Can you just get your perspective? Oh, your volume's gone again.
Oh, no, it's working. Don't scare me.
Okay.
No. Yeah, but I don't know the technicalities, obviously, because I'm not a cricketer. But yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with Monty.
But in terms of the fans' impact, that's what I want your thoughts on, because that's something that you would have noticed, as we all did.
In terms of fans?
Well, that they really affected both, even the way Siraj batted and Ashwin batted towards the end. That revelry when he got his century and Siraj's 6 was, I think, almost lifted by the crowd.
Yeah, I think so. I've always said that India plays better when there's fans out there in the stadium. It just gives them some sort of energy. But India have batted and bowled better in England. Better than England in this match. That's pretty simple. And conditions have been the same for both the sides from ball 1. And there was a lot of jokes going around with Ashwin's making 100 plus. There's something definitely wrong with the pitch. But I think the pitch was actually quite hard for. It was actually turning out good for the spinners today. So India lost their 5 wickets quite early in the very beginning of the start of the day 3, and then Ashwin and Kohli was able to make it a bit more stable. So Ashwin making runs, and then England has not been making runs. There has been talks about pitch again, but it's quite very shocking and hypocrite, I think. As we are fair sports lovers, then we all know that Indians can be the worst critics when it comes to India losing, as we take it very seriously, which is fair, which makes this the sport so big for us in India, right? So in saying that, but again, there's a lot of things on Twitter that England's poor performance and has been blaming the pitch for it, which is quite funny for me to understand why. But Sunil Gavaskar's reply today was something to really look for, that you have a seaming pitch in England. Australia gets dismissed for 46 runs, let's say, and the ball keeps swimming all day throughout. No one talks about that. But when it comes to what Indian pitches and when the ball starts to turn, people poses a problem. Right? And
I don't think that Australia pitch, when they got batted over 36, was anything to do with the wicket.
Very well in the first test. The pitch wasn't an issue. It was the performance that was an issue. When now England is not performing, the pitch is an issue. So that's quite. In all fairness, look at Rohit Sharma, who scored 161 runs on the board yesterday beautifully. And I agree, if that is a batsman has a good skill, he can even bat it out on this wicket. And there's 1 or 2 people on who don't like. I wouldn't say who don't like India, but who don't like India or England, let's say. So they'll always be having a go at India or England. So that's fine. We ignore them, and they've got. It's a mark of double standards, I would say. But basically, what I want is all the Indian fans out there, we really need to support India on that and take a stand, which is very needed, because the pitch is challenging, but it's not unplayable. And if England is not performing, it's nothing to do with the pitch, because when India wasn't performing very well in the first test match, there was no talks as such. So in full support of Team India, not just because being an Indian, but it's just in all fairness, it's something that we need to take a stand for and make a statement. What do you think, Norman?
That's actually very interesting, because I do think India's performance has improved having a crowd compared to not having a crowd. It's distinct, very distinct. You can sense that.
So it's not the pitch, you mean? So English poor performance is actually with the crowd being in the stadium.
I'd be quite happy to sit through, and I think Aparna is slightly unfair. I'd be quite happy to sit through all of our reviews of that first test, and I guarantee you on 2 or 3 times I'd have said I thought the pitch was poor. I will put as much money on anything you want, and I said irrelevant, England won. I don't think the pitch is great, and I'll eat my hat if I didn't say that. So it's not that, and the 36 all out in Australia, that wasn't anything to do with the wicket. That was just good bowling and really poor batting from India. So, it is what it is, and you've got to adapt to your conditions. And the first test, England did so, and there have been 2 very important tosses so far. Monty said the other day, and I agree that if we'd swapped the tosses over, I think it would still be 1-1. But India won the first, and we probably won the second. So, India have just outplayed England this test, and fair play to them. They deserve it. And Ashwin's been, as always in India, he's been brilliant.
Well, again, pitch is challenging, but it's not unplayable. So, and it's same for both the teams again. That's the main thing. It's same for both the teams. So it's quite unfair to say that. That's my point. I'm not saying it's a great pitch and blah blah blah. But
the reality is that it may well be toss related. I'm not going to take that away from the conversation. But why don't we start flipping bats or something if it's that much of an issue, for God's sake? I'm wondering whether we should, the toss, is there a better way of doing it? I don't know. Is it fair that the visiting team wins the toss? Is that something which would level it all up?
Maybe whoever loses...
I think it would level it up more in the subcontinent. I don't think it would level it up as much in Australia or South Africa or England, because typically those wickets are 5-day week. Generally,
we've had the no toss thing in county cricket in England, and actually the pitches get worse. That's the thing, because if you know that you're going to bat first, it's going to do a bit, and then it just deteriorates even more. So for me, not having the toss in theory sounds good, but actually it goes the other way. So I think it is what it is. Just accept home advantage and adapt to conditions. That's
the way that you can do it.
Test cricket is all about. You're not going to get a level playing field, which is what everybody wants. The whole reason for traveling around the world is to see who are our most skilled cricketers. If you want a level playing field, then play on a flat pitch with a white ball, and that's the reason why you get 2020 players who can't play Test cricket. That's it.
Very well said.
Monty,
what was your feeling when you would often go on an overseas trip and the conditions would be against you for whatever reason? What was your mental thought? What made you strong in that situation?
Yeah, I think in that situation, it was like, speaking to your coaches, speaking to your fellow, wicket keepers and other spinners, and just talking about the pressure of a spinner, what they put under. It's like, I think it's, it's like when a seamer, which is expected, when the ball seams around, it's a lot easier, for the seamer to do well, because that's what you're expected, and that's what we're accustomed to in England, sorry. The ball seams, we get wickets, and it's like it's a normal thing, for us to, deal with that pressure. But I don't think as spinners, it makes it very difficult, only in the second half of the season, and unless the counties themselves, like Somerset's one of them, which produces turning pitches, they can deal with that. But then you ask yourself the question, then Jack Leach is accustomed to playing on turning pitches, on pitches which actually, there's a few times where they've been docked points. The ECB said this is not a good, standard pitch, and they've taken points off her. But so, like I'm asking myself the question, is that what Jack Leach does when he plays at Somerset? He just keeps bowling his stock ball over and over again, and the English and the county batsmen just get out, or we must do some variation, must be a bit more authoritative. Like I just don't, there's moments in time, especially when you're playing these turning pitches, you need the spinner to take ownership and be a bit more, coming from the front foot, go to Joe Root and say, look, this is what I want. He's sort of listening to vice captain Joe Root, listening to them and saying, okay, yeah, let's go that way, rather than saying no. Midway through the over, go up to Joe Root, walk up to him and say, listen, let's change it up. Let's go over the wicket. Let's do something. That will, that sort of presence in front of the world's best batsman is like, hang on a minute, you're making me wait mid-over. Yeah, I am, because we're going to change our game plan. That sort of, I just don't see that in Jack Leach or Moeen Ali. They're very sort of passive when they don't have any other game plans. And I think that's where Joe Root wants that from them. Come on, guys, find a way of getting a wicket. And I think they were just lacking sort of plan B, plan C, on getting wickets.
How much do you think they've been given that freedom, Monty? Because in the world of the analyst and statistics and everything else now, I'm a big believer that when players are on the field, they get a feel for the situation, and they've got to be given the freedom to make those decisions accordingly. I just wonder how restricted they are to be able to do that nowadays.
Well, I think it's more of a personality and attitude thing. It's something that they've got to sort of, like someone like Jack Leach. If he wants to become a top spinner now, he's got to sort of just lead a little bit from the front. Maybe take time out of the game. Like I said the other day, what do you do when you get hit for 4 or 5 sixes? I just I'll just go to mid-on or go to the man on the drive and ask him, look, what are we having for dinner tonight? Take time out of the game, play a bit of mind games. Have the confidence to get the field up, then say, no, sorry, mate, go back again. Frustrate the bowler, frustrate the batsman, get him out of his rhythm. None of that, they just, okay, yeah, get back bowling again. They just didn't change anything, or, just throw the ball at the umpire and say, look, there's something wrong with this ball, but nothing's wrong with it.
I think that comes with, where Jack Leach is with his career. Like, he's not played a lot, he's played mostly abroad. Like you say about the analyst, I bet Ravi Ashwin doesn't think, I bet if he wants to change a field or go a wicket, I bet he does what he wants. So he tells Kohli that's what he's going to do. But, that's the difference between 400 test wickets and 80 test wickets and a guy that's probably short of confidence, has played a lot in the subcontinent, never played a lot at home. Fair play to him today. he got pant out. I mean, it was a fairly horrific shot, but it's been one that's worked well for him so far. And just to touch on again, I thought Ben Folkes' keeping, those two stumpings he took this morning were, especially that one off Pant, were just fantastic. I mean, he there's one thing for sure. I think that he'll certainly. I think it's up to Pant's game as well. I think that with the keeping side, I think that, and I've played with lots of keepers, and Simon will know what I mean, is that you always want to win that battle. You always want to be better than the opposition keeper. You want to have less buys. You want to take that catch. You want to. I think Folkes has come in talked up as being better than Butler and one of the best in the world. And I think Pant's probably sat there being quite a proud bloke himself. He said, I think it's me. And said that I want to be better. I want to prove myself I'm better than Folkes. So, and he took a couple of great catches in the game, Pant as well. But that's fair play to Leach. I think that those little battles, like getting him out today, didn't hit him for 6, will just do him in good stead. Monty, would you say that's? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look, I think it would, and I think also, that moment that we talked about, the moment of the Test match probably was when Jack Leach got Pant out, and there's a brilliant stumping. So that's something that you're absolutely right. Keepers, compete with each other and they watch each other. And I'm sure the English spinners are watching how Ashwin is adapting, what he's looking to do. And that's something Jeetan Patel, the England selectors haven't really decided on their full-time coach yet. So they'll be sitting now with Jeetan, they'll be thinking, well, how do you assess this? How do you get, the likes of the spinners to be better? What are your game plans, your options? And it's something that they will watch, watch him and see if he's the right candidate, or is he going to just coach him from a county perspective and think, keep bowling your best ball is the best way, or he should be teaching him different tricks of the trade, like they call it, and he's obviously a fine bowler himself in T20, and so all of these different things, in my opinion, he should try and impose that on them and make them think creatively and in a different way. So, which we didn't see. We just saw very much, the same stuff, and it's difficult. As a captain, I've been there. I've spoken to the captain. I said, look, is that one ball that's going to turn? Give me another over, or do this, and then you push it a little bit harder, or you push it shorter. So you can see it's so difficult from a captain perspective. What do I do, or do I have to be a bit more, show a bit more conviction in my decision making, and actually say to Jack Leach and Moeen Ali, guys, if you're not going to change your game plans, I'm going to bring a seamer on, because it's just all a bit the same, and they're going to get used to it. So I think he should have chopped and changed a little bit, to break up their rhythm.
Monty, did you have a go-to coach that you would confide in? Not necessarily the one that was with the team, but someone that knew your game and, you could have those open discussions with?
Yeah, look, I was very much, try and speak to, my coaches who were, like from my younger days, who would encourage me to just remind me of what I was like then. But then also they'll say to me, there's some limitations, that you'll keep, remember. And if you keep bowling the same way, they're going to get used to it. So you've got to change that up. And then you go to that coach a little bit. Who was that coach who told me how to vary it, how to do that? And then have these kind of conversations. But these should come very natural, This shouldn't, it's not rocket science, just to bowl an arm ball or to, change your position at the crease. But I just think that because in England, we coached so much to say, keep bowling your best delivery, keep bowling your best delivery. Eventually you'll get a wicket. I think them days are gone, I think games moved on. Games, changed a lot, and you've got to, change with the times.
Good. Norm, you with us?
Do you think, Monty, that there's the emphasis is more in the subcontinent, that you have to keep bowling, like the successful spinners in England often get it with natural variation, or if you look at Australia around the wicket bringing first slip into play, both edges of the bat, do you think that because the pitches do spin more, spinners are sort of nailed into that they have to bowl their best ball, they have to keep trying to bowl that magic ball instead of just being patient and letting sort of your variations take part? Because in England and in Australia, you would say that you get as many wickets with that kind of natural variations. You've got to be clever away. Do you think that in India, if you keep running and just trying to rag it, you're going to turn one for the get ball.
Well, it's the batsman as well. In England, batsmen don't go far back. They don't go fully forward. You don't need to, because the wickets don't turn as such, as such a greater degree. So then it makes it a lot easier to actually say, oh, I'll keep bowling my stock delivery, and eventually it'll go on with the arm, or it'll turn. And plus, there's more pace in the wicket. The Duke ball is a bit harder. So it's in England, this type of coaching is great. Keep bowling your stock delivery. But I think in the subcontinent, the England, you look at the way Virat Kohli goes leg side to Jack Leach and gets a full stride forward. Then if he's going back, he goes right back. It's difficult for the English spinners to adapt to that, because they're not exposed to that in the county game. In the county game, everyone just plays with half stride back, and you kind of caught them in the crease. And that method works in county cricket, because we don't play spin as well as the Indian players do.
Good point.
But it flicks on the you can spin on its head and say, well, it's the same if you go for seam bowling. It's why we thrive in those conditions more than in the subcontinent players, is because they don't play seam bowling as well as we would do, or the Australians would do. So it's there's two sides, isn't there?
Yeah.
This is great stuff, guys. I really respect the commentary. It's very, I actually think it's rather innovative, and we're not, the level of detail that you guys are providing is amazing. I applaud you, and the commentary we're getting from people that are listening, they're actually learning from what we're talking about. I just hope these reports, that this interaction we're having is actually getting back to those who count. I'm not saying we're the experts of experts, but the reality is there's some glaringly obvious things that we've talked about regarding Leach and Mo and Ali, and aspects of what's going on that really could help. And sometimes it does need, as Simon said earlier, someone from our side saying the same thing, but saying it from that perspective that someone would actually listen or resonate with. And I think that's really irrelevant. So, Simon, just quickly, what is the story with, and it doesn't have to be ECB specific, it could be Sri Lankan cricket, it could be wherever. When there is something that's obvious that needs to be said, how is it communicated to the people? Is there is it as easy as that? It should be.
Are you talking about players? Are you talking about the county game? Where are you talking?
Well,
where are you talking?
At any level, for that matter, when there's something glaringly obvious there that someone's just not getting through, but someone from our side wants to provide it, especially ex-players.
Yeah, look, I think, to be fair to the ECB, they're pretty open these days. They're a pretty approachable group of people. In the past, it was very much a them and us situation, even internally. The national team, there was a gap between the national team and the Lions, for instance. If players weren't performing, then people would blame the Lions coaches. So that's become a lot better. And the gap is getting closer with the counties with regards to filtering information down to the county coaches. But you're always going to have self-interest, and counties are always going to want to do what's right for their counties, because they're paying the players' salaries, and to win trophies is what they need to do to bring the income in. Ultimately, every county wants to produce international cricketers. There's no doubt. But it's getting better, but I think there's still a lot more that can be done to access people that want to get involved for the right reasons. And I know Monty cares passionately about spin bowling and English cricket, and I have no doubt that he would love to spend some time in that environment.
Okay. And I wasn't talking about ECB alone. I was talking generally.
Yeah, well, in Sri Lanka, I brought consultants in, when I was there. So that was one thing, that just because a player doesn't want to go through his coaching qualifications, that means you don't utilise them. Because for me, generally, players learn from players. The discussions you have in a dressing room after a game, over a meal or a drink, are invaluable. And for me, bringing players into that environment was crucial. And someone like Chaminda Vas, for instance, when I was in Sri Lanka, he hadn't done his coaching badges, but I wanted him involved because he was the greatest left-arm seamer ever to play for Sri Lanka. and I wanted, the guys to be inspired by him, as well as the knowledge that he can provide. So we brought him in as a consultant, and he's still there today doing his thing.
I think it's an important point Simon makes, is that at that level, you're not really coaching. You might be on the machine or doing some little technical bits, but it's as much in the head, isn't it? And so if you're sharing experiences, even at league level, if someone wants to coach me, I'd much rather talk to someone that's played 15 years and scored lots of runs and taken wickets, just because they know how to do it at that level. And I think that for players in Test cricket, they don't need to know how to move their foot to pitch the ball. They don't need to. It's about trying to get in their head about how to succeed. And that, as Simon said, the coaching badge doesn't do that. It's experience as much as anything, isn't it? Twice today you're breaking up, Norman. I think the fans want to see.
I'm having trouble hearing you guys, to be honest with you.
All right. So what's the predictions
for tomorrow?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Can you hear me? Guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
crackly, but we can hear.
We can hear you, Norman.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing you guys very well. I'll just go out and come back in. Okay. Give me a second.
Okay, no problem. Apart that, I don't see England batting the day out for sure. I said before the innings started that I thought England would be 250 all out. I think it will be less than that. So, yeah, that's my view.
Yeah, I agree. If England can bat the day, and I'm not saying they will, I think that they'll see that as a massive win and a massive positive, just because their guys are getting more time in the middle. They're keeping India's bowlers out there in the heat. I think that they'll be sitting down tomorrow and saying, let's just take it session by session. If we can bat the day out, it means someone's got 100. Maybe two people have got 150 or an 80. And I think they'll see that as a massive win in the context of this series. So I think England will probably lose by T maybe in the last session. But I think, if they can bat the day out and Root can get 100 or Stokes can get 100 or Folks can go in and get some runs, and I think they'll see that as a massive positive going into that next test. And you've always want to keep the bowlers out there for as long as possible, guys in the field. It's never England aren't in this one. I know in the year of surprising test run chases, this was probably the most staggering result of all time if England pulled off a win from here. So it's not going to happen, but they'll still see there's a lot of chances to take some positives out of it.
Yeah, that's true. And Norman's gone. That's great. Let's go to Monte.
Yeah, look, I think if they can bat until T, that'd be great. 2 sessions with 7 wickets. If they can bat the whole day, that'd be a brilliant day for England. On these really difficult, tough conditions. Something that they probably won't face very often. Let's not sort of nail this England team as much as we can. They're much more used to swinging conditions. But if they can find a way of batting the whole day, at least 2 sessions, I think I'll be very disappointed if we lose 7 wickets in the first session and we lose just before lunch. I think that'll be absolutely gutting for all of us. So if they can take the game into T just after T and play about 2 sessions, even 3, that'll be brilliant.
I also think it's quite a big day for Kuldeep Yadav tomorrow. He didn't bowl tonight. He didn't take lots of wickets in the first innings, and he's been the one that they've called in as after that first test as almost the saviour. Like, why hasn't he been playing? Why hasn't he been playing? He should have been playing. He'd have won the test. And it's interesting to see Kohli's use of him so far. He opened the bowling of Axar. He went straight to Ashwin. Axar bowled a lot. So it's going to be interesting for him. If he doesn't bowl much or doesn't take many wickets and the other 2 spinners reel him off, then it makes it kind of gives an impression that maybe Kohli isn't 100% confident in him, or he's much happier with Axar on the side. So I think he'll be seeing it as a big chance to try and take some wickets tomorrow and play in that third test, because from my point of view, it's an interesting one. You'd think you'd want to get your wrist spinner into the game, especially when the game's done and dusted.
I think there's an element of the third test match here. The next game's under lights with a pink ball. His 2 spinners have started really well. So keep them going, because they might only play 2 spinners in the next test match. and only utilise Yadav if you need to use him, if the others are tired or the game's going longer than they'd like. So I think he was the luxury in the side rather than the front runner.
I mean, don't you think there is something with Coley's thoughts on him? There must be. I think Chris is spot on. There's something very suspicious about the way he's being underplayed. What's your thoughts, Monty?
Yeah, look, I think I think Kuldeep is a difficult one, because he's such an X-factor player. But then, when you see, the likes of finger spinners providing you the control and doing an effective job, and the players that they have available, that sort of spinner and bat well, that's where I think Kuldeep Yadav is probably, I thought if you could bat really well, and he was a useful batsman, he can definitely compete with the other guys. But that's why he probably puts him down a little bit lower in the list, just because I think he likes his spinners to bat. He likes his spinners to provide them sort of lower order runs, which are Kuldeep Yadav is not a natural batsman.
I think also that the makeup of the England side affects his selection as well. Just if you go back to when Monty was playing, we probably had 7 left-handers in some of those test sides. You had Cook, Strauss, you had a lot of lefties. And Kuldeep turns into the bat, and I think that's why he didn't turn his main. Monty's prime example, and a spinner that turns it away from the right-handers is massive, and that's probably why Axar's being used so much, and that's, I think, probably the biggest reason why Kuldeep's not being used, is because they would have said, and for the first test they showed that they want a spinner that turns it away from the right-hander.
Yeah.
This has been amazing, guys. The commentary is continuing at a very rapid rate. We haven't lost numbers. People are still here. We've got a churn of numbers. We've peaked about 2 minutes ago. We're almost level with that. It's just phenomenal, guys. You're so interesting to talk to. Maybe not all very good looking, except for a partner, but you certainly are interesting to listen to, that's for sure.
Very funny.
I mean, no, I was talking. I was like, all right, guys, just wrap this up today. Let's look at some conclusions. We've talked about. You've mentioned about by hopefully they last as long as tea tomorrow. We'd even hope they last longer than that. It depends on Joe Root. Would you argue that he bats with the likes of Stokes and Pope? They have some significant plays. And Mo and Ali. They've got the potential to actually make a bit of a fist of this. They're not going to win. We know that, but they could get close to 300 and make it look very, very much positive for the next set of tests. Anyway, any last thoughts from each one of you?
I think with so much turn and bounce, things look easy and smooth for India tomorrow. I think who has Ashwin, Axar, and Kuldeep in the spin department to rattle the English batsmen out. I think it would be surprising if the match goes till the 5th day, which is very unlikely. So if all goes well and no dramas, India is in complete control to easily, comfortably finish this test tomorrow with a win not before lunch, but definitely before stumps tomorrow, I think.
It's very confident. Chris, what are you saying?
Yeah, no, I think India will be sat there tonight happy with their work over 3 days, but at the same time they'll be sat there saying we want to nail this England side tomorrow. They won't want England to get 300 and Joe Root gets 100. Ollie Pope goes in and gets some runs against Ashwin, or Stokes comes in. They'll be sitting there thinking we want to wipe the floor here. We don't want them having any match net practice against our spinners. We want them to see as little as possible against them. Someone like Ollie Pope is seen as the next big thing in England. He's got a very bright future. Pretty tough going into a series like this. Just wonder whether, I don't think it will happen, and I don't know how it can happen, but I'd like to see Ben Stokes maybe batting slightly higher up in the order, just because I think that he's a very fine player of spin, and possibly one of our better players of spin. Last thing you want to do is have a guy like that end up 40 not out with the tail again. So I think India will be sat there going, we want to be ruthless tomorrow. We want to be bowling as little as possible. Because if Stokes can go in and get some runs, or Pope gets 80, Stokes gets a 50, that just breeds confidence in that England side. And India definitely won't want that going into the next test.
Good points. Monty or Simon?
Go on, Monty.
Yeah, so look, I think from an England perspective, they would want to bat as long as they can, and also, see if the Graham Thorpe will be talking about certain game plans, theories, and the ability for some of these younger players to take on the information and adapt their game while test series is going on is another skill to be a good test player. So there's a lot lot at stake for the England players. So I think we don't want to see India obviously would love to see just before lunch so all the wickets, 7 wickets gone, but I think that'll be very disheartening for all of us. So let's hope that it's the England players show some fight tomorrow.
Excellent. Simon.
Norm, I think you need to summarise this now because the people out there are asking for your predictions. You've been quiet for the last few days and everybody wants to know what you're thinking.
He sits on the fence apart from when he needs to, old Norm. So,
Look, I'm going to play that 3-second clip of you laughing your guts out when I said Rohit Sharma was going to score 147.
Flat wicket, opening bat, he'll get 100. Oh, geez, well done.
I predict Rohit Sharma will be used as a fill-in bowler when all the other guys have slight injuries. He'll take a fifer. How about that? No. The reality is I think that obviously England's going to have little to no chance of making this a game. India's going to win quite clearly. I'm hoping that England do put up a performance tomorrow and they do have some strength towards the end of the innings so as to be ready for the third. I'm very much, if India continue this way, we could see the next 2 tests go India's way as well. I'm hoping not. Obviously, Ahmedabad will be more of a fast bowler's pitch, we hope, or more of a pink ball friendly pitch. So I'm hoping that isn't the case. But the way India look, it looks like the momentum is on their side yet again. So England need to take some of that back tomorrow and at least put a good fist of it in. They really need to finish well, and India need to hit them well. So it's going to be there's no lack of interest in tomorrow's play, that's for sure. Even though it looks like India's going to win, it needs to be fought to the end by England. Is that fair enough, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that England just have to see it as try and do their best to keep some form and keep some confidence. This series is definitely not over, and India. Let's not get away from the fact that India will be expected to win this series 3-1. There'll be anything else is completely England's thing. And I think I said to someone this morning, I think that England have already achieved what they possibly came to do at the start of the series, and that was win a Test match. I honestly don't think that they would have toured any realistically saying we can win the series, and they probably sat there saying, if we can win a test or draw a test as well, and that shows how far we've come from last time we were there and how much better that is than other sides have managed in India in the last 10 years. They've not lost hardly anything. So it's a big day for Dan Lawrence. I think that unless he gets 150, I think that his place will be lost in that side for the third test. So I think that I know that England could get stuffed in an hour tomorrow, but I think that there's a lot more positives that England can take out than negatives from tomorrow because the test is already lost. So if they get stuffed, then they don't really lose much. But if they can go out and bat, then I think there's a lot of positives still to be gained, and India will be wary of that because they know that this England side have got a bit of competitiveness about them. They're not just going to roll over and die, and they won't want to give them any hope or any momentum going into that third test. And if England bat a day, and some guys get some runs, and that gives a little bit of momentum, I think, or a little bit of confidence.
Thanks, guys. That's
Simon is left.
I've already given my prediction twice today already.
Yeah, you did. And we're going to hear one more time.
I think Simon's wiping his eyes. I'm not sure. Was that a tear or not?
No. We're just respecting the opposition, Norm. It's all over. Test match is over. It's just can England come out of tomorrow with some pride and confidence going into the third test.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
This is actually going live on Cricket Conversation with Aparna Sani, by the way, too, if you noticed. So that's what hers as well.
It's been a great show, and it's just the start to many more. We would be doing for all the people out there who love cricket as much as we do. And once again, thank you everyone who joined us today for Day 3 post-match analysis with Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochenak in collaboration with Cricket Conversation with Aparna Sani. And you can see both live on both the platforms. So we've got a good number of views out there. We will bring you more from India versus England and other series throughout the year.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. See you.
Ciao,
See you.
guys. Thanks, Lonnie.
Bye.
Ciao, guys.